Thank you. Very generous of you to give way. I'm very grateful. Does the honourable member not see the difference in the discussion? We are not seeking at all to influence what happens in the American presidential candidate elections or elections to follow. We're talking about what we can do here. We're talking about asking the Home Secretary to be consistent in her approach she's used and rules she's used in relation to 84 other preachers, that those same rules be applied to Donald Trump in this country. We're talking about the United Kingdom, not anywhere else.
I fully appreciate the Honourable Lady's remarks. And as far as she is concerned, in her own mind, that is the case. But I'm asking her to consider what the people of America would, how would they interpret the ban? How would they don't have the luxury of having her sort of lucidity and understanding how our conventions and debates work. The headline, I'm very happy to give away.
I thank the Honourable Member because you make my point for me. It's all very well to say that let Donald Trump come here and have the discussion with us. He wishes to ban people like me and the lucidity to which you refer to going to the United States of America to make the case for the Muslims of this country who want to live in peace and harmony, who are not represented by Daesh. That is the point, and I thank the Honourable Member for giving way and allowing me to make that.
I fully appreciate her remark, but as other people have observed, the answer to his ban is not to ban him. That doesn't make any sense to me, and I'll explain very briefly. He is banning Muslims. In his own mind, he's saying that Muslims constitute a danger to the United States. That's what he thinks. And on those grounds, he is banning them. Now, we are doing the same thing if we were to ban him. We are saying that Donald Trump represents a danger to the United Kingdom, and on that ground, we are banning him from coming. The implied logic is exactly the same. The circumstances are different, but the logical thought is exactly the same. I'm quite happy to give way.
I thoroughly disagree with the Honourable Member on saying that it's exactly the same. It is not exactly the same. Donald Trump has said he wants to ban all Muslims because of their religion. That's 1.6 billion people he wants to ban because of their religion. The reason why the members on this, or some members, are asking for him to be banned is because of the rhetoric and the sentiment and the values that he's expressed. That is different from banning someone because of their religion. I hope that point is clear to another member who made the same point.
I've been very generous in my interventions, but I want to clarify that point. I don't have much time. But as I repeat, the grounds upon which he is banning Muslims isn't because of their faith. It is because he believes that they constitute a danger to the United States. That is the ground, all of that. I mean, I'm just explaining his logic. I don't agree with it. And I'm saying that any case to ban Donald Trump would be on the basis that he is a danger to our civic safety.
Very briefly.
Logically, it is exactly the same.
Very briefly. On that point about 1.6 billion Muslims, thank God there are 1.6 billion Trumps.
Yes, yeah, it would make our life, I think it will make our lives very, very difficult. But lastly, what I would say in conclusion, it's been a very engaging, very enlightening debate. But what I would say is, beyond the immense publicity, and it's no good to say that, oh, he's got a huge publicity at the moment, so any more wouldn't make any difference. We've seen throughout his campaign, he was well known at the beginning of his campaign, but we've seen that there's been a growing crescendo of excitement, of interest in the campaign. The very fact of this debate, as someone else observed, is generating and stoking that excitement. I'm not going to take any more interventions. I could see the lady itching in her seat, but I will resist that temptation. But what I'm saying is that we are simply adding fuel to this whole media circus, and this is playing exactly into his hands. And a ban, if it were, would be a headline throughout the world. It would simply reignite all the publicity that he generated with his outrageous policy, and would exacerbate the situation, would make it more likely that he would be the eventual victor in the Republican nomination fight, and may well, who knows, win the election in November. And then we would be in this absurd situation, Mr. Chairman, in which we would have banned the President of the United States from coming to Britain, which is insane. It's an insane situation to be in. And people who say that he has no chance of becoming president, this is my final point. Look at the odds on Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the opposition.
Oh, I know.
I think someone in Essex, I'm not sure whether it was in your constituency, Mr. Chairman, made £2,000, having put £10 on him at 200 to 1. And I can assure you, as of today, the chances of Donald Trump becoming president are far greater than 200 to 1.
Sarah Wollaston.
Thank you, Sir David. I think the question for the Home Secretary is this: is Donald Trump conducive to the public good? And I think we've had a lot of talk in this debate about buffoonery, terms like blunt directness. I would say that if I were Muslim, and I'm not, I speak as a gentle atheist, I would find that repulsive. The thought that I should be excluded from the United States of America for no other reason than that I was a Muslim. I'm proud to represent Dartmouth. And from Dartmouth, nearly 400 years ago, the Pilgrim Fathers sailed to the Americas. And they sailed to escape from the kind of religious persecution that we're addressing today. And because we've seen the results in Europe of what happens when you demonize an entire people for no other reason from their race. So I don't think that we should trivialize this discussion. I think it's a really important debate. Nor do I think that the result of the US presidential election will be decided on whether or not we in this House or whether the Home Secretary decides to exclude Donald Trump. In fact, I would argue that should Donald Trump be excluded from one of the US's oldest allies, that would send a very clear message to the people of the United States about what we feel about those who demonize an entire people for no reason other than their religion. That said, I don't think there is any realistic prospect that the Home Secretary will ban Donald Trump. But let's, as this House, send a very clear message to Muslims in this country, to British Muslims, that we value you, that we value your contribution, that we will take this petition very seriously, and that perhaps those arguments about religious freedom matter as much now as they did 400 years ago. And I welcome everybody across the pond in the United States who may be following this debate back to my constituency, the most beautiful constituency in Britain, to come and see where the Pilgrim Fathers sailed from Dartmouth. And the anniversary is in 2020. But I'd say to them all, and I'd say to Donald Trump, just reflect on the consequences of your kind of religious bigotry. This is not a laughing matter. Think again, and if you do visit this country, take time to visit the mosques. Take time to meet Muslims. Take time to understand just how profoundly offensive and dangerous that kind of thinking is. And there is no place for it in this country or in the United States.
Thank you, Sir David. 25 years ago, I was in New York City, and out of some sort of mawkish interest, perhaps in his notoriety, I visited, I actually did two things related to Mr. Trump. I visited the Trump Tower, which is a sort of a black and gold edifice to a certain sort of narcissism, and I read his book, The Art of the Deal, which I have to say was pretty similar in many ways. And, you know, these things weren't very edifying, and his activities since haven't got any more edifying, I would say. We have in this country, though, a long history of civilizing tolerance, developed out of conflict, deliberation, and progress. This place, Westminster Hall, is a place of particular resonance in that history, where overbearing attitudes have been brought into line with the thinking of the day, sometimes with force, even when held by the most powerful. King Charles I was sentenced to death just a few yards from this place. MPs here represent their constituents by leave of those who send them, and the sensible ones keep close to mind the summary nature of the decisions of the public opinion which can end it. Those from whom the public withdraws their support have somewhat better prospects than in the past, happily. No longer do political disagreements lead to duels, disembowelment, or decapitation. There is a settled and more civilized system of elections, debates, votes, and law courts to govern us, and for this we must all be grateful. So when a terrorist menace threatens our hard-won civilization, with a throwback to barbaric and outdated methods of dealing with difference and brings them to our shores, it is right that we should oppose it in the strongest terms. Our American cousins feel no differently. They are conscious of freedom, born of escape from religious intolerance, as we just heard, a need to be self-reliant, and a desire to make their own economic destiny, and their own strong democratic and legal institutions have been forged out of traumatic disagreement too. When they speak, we should listen, even if we disagree, and we should be robust with them where necessary and encourage them not to take retrograde steps. And so back to Mr. Trump, the Donald, the orange prince of American self-publicity, more public now than usual because he will be running for president if he wins the nomination as Republican candidate, and possibly be close to the presidency should Bernie Sanders and not Hillary Clinton be selected as the Democrat candidate. He has said things which many of us would not, and the addition of celebrity has been somewhat grotesque. To say he would ban Muslims from entering America was too simplistic, unhelpful, and wrong. But I don't think there is evidence he does not believe in democracy itself. So talk of fascism is, to this point, a bit overblown, notwithstanding his bedtime reading might have left quite a lot to be desired, as we heard earlier. While cynically expressed and exploited by Mr. Trump, people's concerns about the terrorist challenge do need to be addressed. However, we need to work positively with Muslim communities, not demonize them. Where better for Mr. Trump's spurious opinions and characterizations to be debated and debunked than here in the UK, the crucible of modern democracy, in which heads are no longer lost for dissent? Who would not want to watch him pricked, poked, and prodded on, "Have I got news for you?" So let him come. Bad opinions and characters have been allowed in Britain before, not a few of them homegrown, and we would not want him. Would not want to allow him any victimhood with which further to hoodwink people. I hope that honest British Muslims would have their say, and even more people would then decide not to vote for him and to use their good sense. Less seriously, who knows? Up close, we might also get to see just what is under that hair.
Anne McLaughlin.
Thank you, Sir David. This petition, with over 500,000 signatures, is a welcome indication of the scale of revulsion with which we in these islands treat the xenophobia of Donald Trump. Now, I'm here to sum up for the SNP, although I doubt many parties have an actual policy on Donald Trump. Thankfully, it's not been needed until necessary. And whilst I don't necessarily support a complete ban on Mr. Trump from entry into this country, it's clear that his bigoted remarks against Muslims, against Mexicans, and against other minorities, but particularly his remarks about Muslims, deserve the utmost condemnation from all sides of this House and all parts of society. So can I say at this point that I am proud of the petitioners and all of those who signed this petition for rejecting the outrageous xenophobia and Islamophobia of this man. And I hope they won't take to heart too much the ticking off that they've had from some people on those benches for daring to raise this subject. And there have been arguments, some interesting arguments on both sides of the debate today. Those who are against banning but oppose Donald Trump and everything that he stands for have talked of bringing him here to educate him. And I didn't really I didn't have the same understanding as I think other honourable members have had of what they meant by that when they said, I'd like to invite him to my constituency and take him to the mosque to meet some Muslims. I thought perhaps, maybe those people would teach him a thing or two, and they would be absolutely right to do that. The other argument, the strongest argument I feel in favour of banning him is simply the argument of equality. And I think the Minister needs to answer, is it correct when other members say that there are other cases very similar that are treated extremely differently? I think that's something he has to answer. And indeed, I think the very fact that this petition was so popular highlights three worthy and important points. The first is that we in these islands reject wholeheartedly the notion of discriminating against anyone on the basis of their religion. The second is that it points out that individuals of power such as Trump are happy to demonise others, but would never consider that they themselves could be treated in such a fashion. And thirdly, the public revulsion in this country and in the United States, because let's not forget, there was an outcry in the United States from the many good people in that country to the statements of this public figure highlights the fact that Trump's statement goes against all of the shared Enlightenment values that ties the states and the countries of the United Kingdom together. And whilst we can recognise that his statements were distasteful, we should also note the hypocrisy of this son of an immigrant, of a religious minority, advocating the being so bigoted against other migrants and religious minorities. Donald...